Um, John, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us today.
It's good to be here.
We started out the day talking about managing teams and what it's like to mentor and lead others and foster a great environment. And I think today's talk is really unique because we get to talk about inspiration and what it is to be a better human within your role at a marketing organization. So I'd like to start this with getting to know a little bit about you. I know you have a bunch of friends here. You've done this for a little while. But those of you who don't know John, where did you grow up?
Wow. If there was a place that's the furthest possible distance from where we are right now, that's where I grew up. I could never have drawn a line from there to here. I had nobody who I'd seen do anything in corporate and marketing anywhere at all. So my family background, second generation immigrant family from Latin America. You don't tell by my last name, but that's my family heritage, and we just kind of simple people. Lots of blue collar work and trades, and my first job was probably 5 years old. Dad would take me to work and like make me earn my keep. That was kind of where it began. So definitely not here in Cowboys headquarters with a $1 billion facility.
No, definitely. What was that first job when you were a kid?
Oh, I would. He'd take me and I would sand baseboards because I was little. I could get down on my hands and knees and sand baseboards while somebody came by and painted afterwards, or just little places. I helped. This is like so against rules, but helped drag wire in these little crevices for the electrician through. Like I just thought it was kind of fun, right? We would my brother and I would just like we would get to go explore, like better than making a fort at home. Like you're underneath a house and there were spiders and other things. You just kind of like you just did it. That was life.
It's not child labor if it's your family. I think that's the way that works out. Like
that's
totally okay.
That's what I've been told.
At least that's what they want you to think.
Yeah, but then I wanted to be. I love cars, like fast cars. So I wanted to be a mechanic. And my father, this was just brilliant parenting move. He introduced me to a friend who actually had his own auto shop, and I got this job for a summer, and I was so excited about it. I was making like $2 an hour more than all my friends, and after 3 months of working and like cutting up my hands, and young guy with my back hurt, I was like, I don't think I want to do that. So yeah, anyway, those are my first two jobs.
First
That's
job.
a long ways from here.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about that is you have these little life experiences that make you who you are, right? And climbing under houses and finding adventure in that, working on cars. How did you end up in advertising and marketing? What was the path to get you there?
Yeah, the really clear path is I chased a girl from a community college where I was to a bigger college where she was. We've got two kids together. Excuse me, three kids together. How did I just screw that up? Um,
That last one, you never know.
we have three kids together. It's been 28 years. I was doing like the counting up the years of being married, and that was a two. That's gonna be my excuse. This is like on YouTube forever. My kids.
Yeah, let's just edit that
part. Did you forget? Um, that's an interesting question. Which one would I forget? Which one I give up? Anyway, yeah. So yeah, I chased. It was all for love, I guess, and what I was able to take from like growing up and just working all the time. Even our vacations, we were working somewhere. Dad would make it. He had some job somewhere, and we would all go and camp and then go work on the job. But that skill that I probably didn't know any better of is like what pushed me through. And I just kept asking questions. I actually sold cars for a while.
Hey, me too.
Like, yeah, like if you're a used car salesman, like you're a salesperson, like you learn all kinds of crazy things. There's some things I don't feel really good about if I
manipulation.
Oh my gosh, right? So you can kind of sell anything and work hard, and I think those are my transferable skills.
I love that. I love that. Well, you've now been I now you guys know a little bit about John, and I think that the really cool thing about today's talk is this idea of finding inspiration and chasing your passions. And so, tell us a little bit about the trail, the adventure, before we get into the detail.
Yeah, so I was talking about where I started, and but it's a lot of years ago. And in between, I have just like many of you, just worked really hard. I've raised my hand for different opportunities, and that's just kind of led to the next thing. I've certainly been fortunate and blessed in in so many ways. But I got to a point where I was burned out. I mean, I even forgot how many kids I had, right? And I needed a break. And part of it was we dropped our youngest daughter off in college. Three kids, relatively young. That's a whole other story. Don't repeat it. But dropped her off, and I needed a break. And I went to my boss, and I was fully prepared to just quit. I just really needed a break. There's a few people on my team in here. This may or may not be a new story or not. But I just like, this is what I'm going to go do. And I was like kind of excited to just kind of be like, and she was amazing and was like, that sounds so great. Go do it. And then my team just amazing and stepping up and doing things. But I needed to find some things again in my life and my mind. There was just too much noise, and I felt a little lost, like career wise, relationship wise, like years of marriage. Not, you know, the outside story sometimes is wonderful, but it is like really, 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 really hard. So it was time. It was time for a reset. It was time to find out again, like what my brand was all about, because each of us are our own for-profit brand. Each of us. If you don't believe that, you're missing the whole point. You're each our own for-profit brand. I love some of the stuff in the prior panel.
Yeah,
it's like you've got to invest there, and I needed a reset, a rebranding moment, if you will.
Yeah. So you walk into the office, you're like, dude, I'm out. This is good. I'm going to be gone for a month, and I'm going to go hike. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go hike. And tell us about the journey where you were going to go, and then what did it take to, like, you leave the office, you're not coming back. What's next?
Wow. So in that time growing up, going way back, like my place of peace has always just been in nature, and I needed to shut off a lot of noise. So picking something that I could go and do was a piece of that. Something that was a realistic amount of time that I get away, stacking up vacation. But there's this amazing trail in Colorado. It's about 500 miles, just under 500 miles, about 100,000 feet of climbing. And people would ask me about it. And I kind of got to this point where I just kind of flipped through this thing. I was like, yeah, it's going to take me about a month, 500 miles, about 100,000 feet of climbing. It's like, sea level to Everest, like 3.5 times. No big deal.
What?
And it kind of got this like pridefully sort of thing, like it's not going to be a big deal. And then my brother dropped me off at the trailhead, and I was in a panic. I'm like, what in the world am I about to do? And for the next week, I like broke down in tears. Like every day, I had a good cry, because the hardest thing wasn't the 100,000 miles, but was me. I had spent months planning. Like, this is where I start, this is where I go, this is kind of where that campsite are, where water is, blah, 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 all these things I had planned. In a way, to get back to your question, it was how I had worked in planning with my team forever, and certainly for me to get out the door for a month. I had a plan; everything was just going to be fine, and I just went into more detail, spreadsheet upon spreadsheet, and then we're looking at nutrition, like how much you need to eat, and all these things. And from the very first moment, my plan was blown up. The trail was closed where it was supposed to start, so I took an alternate. And I rushed over there, but had I been patient, I would have gone. They opened it, and it would have like saved me a couple thousand feet of climbing and a bear encounter on the first day. All these things, but just day after day, it was me. I was competing against everybody else. I was so fixated on my plan that I was just breaking. I was just breaking myself.
And I think in our prep talk, you talked about how you can relate that to your everyday in a marketing organization. And I think that tying is really amazing because we're all planners. Let's be honest. We have teams and objectives and KPIs. So has that impacted
Oh,
that
massive,
breakdown on your planning impacted your days today?
massively, because when this experience became consistently enjoyable, I don't know if that's even fair. I get hurt every day, but it was a month solid of walking every day. It got to the point where towards the last couple of weeks, it was a marathon most days or more. So a lot of it, but
26.2 miles for those of you.
yeah, that's right. So
every day.
Fair chunk. I did 32 one day up in the mountains. But anyway, back to that point of planning, like what happens is like the plan broke the first day and I realized it was me being kind of fixated. And so when it all began to change is when I would just wake up when the sun came up. So sun peaks up around like 4:45 in the morning, pack up and go. I just walked till I was done. What happened throughout that day happened versus trying to get to separate places. I learned to enjoy what I called hugging trees. So every in the summertime up in the high mountains, every single day you're gonna have a thunderstorm. We've got some thunderstorms here. We see tornadoes here in Texas. There every single day you're gonna have a thunderstorm. You don't know how long it's gonna last or what it's gonna be. But I just got to the point instead of trying to push through, I'd find a little area of trees, and I on a couple of occasions literally just wedged myself with trees and fell asleep. And when the thunder stopped, I kind of wake up and just keep going, or I just change plans entirely. And the real clear learning and bringing back to work is that there are forces of nature that you just have to uh, acknowledge, and trying to fight through those isn't always gonna work. A few of my team members here know we just this week launched a big rebranding effort for advertising and marketing for a big portion of AT&T. It's about a 3-year effort. About a 3-year effort. It was finding the right marketing conditions, the right leadership, or the leadership that's going to agree with each other. I guess there's no leadership. There's a bunch of executives not agreeing, and then we have a set of leaders that are agreeing, and we're moving forward. But all those things need to align, and it doesn't matter if I have a plan or I have one of my best planners in the room here today, and she is amazing, the best planner, like we're going to do these things and you're going to hit all your things. And sometimes it doesn't happen. Oftentimes it doesn't happen. And so that flexibility is something that was just completely ingrained in me painfully, like literally painfully, that I've been my biggest, my pushing through and doing these long things can be, I can be my worst enemy at times.
Yeah, you touched on something I thought was scary, which is a bear. Um, just going 25 miles every day, I'm scared of that by myself. Like, was there anything that was like this paramount scary thing? I'm just like super curious. Like, what was the big
the bear was awesome, and it was so fast. But what was interesting is my team, we were kind of talking about it, and they're like, "What are you gonna do if you see a bear?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just gonna stand there and hope that the bear goes the other way." And I didn't bring anything special. I had my trekking poles, and it all happened fast. I think the bear, both of us were fortunately we're both scared of each other, and so we left. But happened on the first day, so I'm going to tell that I was able to text the team like, "Hey, saw a bear and I survived, and everything's okay." Probably the most harrowing moment was talked about these thunderstorms, and every day there'd been one. It was particularly bad a day prior, and as I'm coming up and hiking midday, there was actually smoke and kind of smoke on the trail, and it came up, and there was another couple of hikers there, and we were able to find where a lightning strike had hit a tree, and the tree was actually just smoldering on fire. And if you've never seen something like this before, I'd never seen something like this. It looked like fragments of full-on trees just blown everywhere. It was just an explosion of wood, and we just worked with what we had, like rocks and dirt, to put out a fire. I never thought that I would be doing something like that, but you meet really interesting people, and you're just kind of there, and it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now you can add firefighter to your
Sure.
resume. Um, one of the other things we talked a lot about was this concept of being solo and taking this path alone, which I find super fascinating. I run from being alone personally, but um, like, talk to us about that time by yourself and like what you were able to like kind of sort out and what your big learning was from that time alone. Because I think your candor when we were talking before about it was really awesome.
Yeah. So this trail, along with some of the other big ones you may have, Reese Witherspoon movie, walking along the PCT, there are big trails in the U.S. and there in the summer, into the fall, there are other people out there. So I saw other people on occasion, and had I wanted to have a community experience, I could have done that. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I really was just looking for some answers for me, and so I really kept to myself, and I think what that does, and this is kind of weird from a guy who pushes technology on people for years. I've been at AT&T for 10 years. I've been in wireless for forever. And I'm a big fan of like shutting all of that noise off. There's too many beats and vibrations in our life, and we just respond to those things. If somebody hasn't muted their phone, a little beep goes off, like half this room's gonna go, well, what's that? Is there something important? And shutting that off is necessary for us to find, to really just communicate with ourselves, communicate with greater power, whatever, meditate, whatever it is that you do, like, is really, really key. And it doesn't have to be a month-long experience like this. It could be an hour. Like, do something crazy and like go to the park without a phone at all. People used to do that and we survived.
It's crazy.
Be okay.
Right? I know.
Nobody needs to really get a hold of you. It's gonna be all right. But that alone like forces you to put faith in yourself and other things. And so I did a ton of journaling and realized, and a lot of asking for forgiveness from people in my life because of things I realized about myself, about my like focus on a plan and commitment to just getting something done, and like what I've always prided myself and like be able to outwork anybody means that I'll just blow through doors and I won't listen. There's also, I think most profoundly, there is a saying in the through hiker community of it's called hike your own hike. And that really means that, just very simply, that each of us need to choose our path. And what I saw in this experience, because there were others that I came across and we would leapfrog, and towards the end, I actually last 5 days, I made just amazing friends with a couple of women that were out there hiking, is that there are countless ways of getting from point A to point B, or getting from point A to wherever you end up going. Moving forward and experiencing that alone is success. And so when I came back, and hopefully my team, some people are here in the room, will not throw something at me saying it's not what I'm doing anymore, but I really still try to, as like a problem's being presented or a solution's being presented, to think, okay, what are other ways that we can do that? Not like, is there another way? What are other ways? Because there are countless ways. Even when, big executive that's on your company report says, this is what I need, that person sometimes is giving you a solution, hasn't defined the problem. If you go back and define the problem, that person's going to be much more satisfied with what you produce. And yet what happens often, we heard it just in the last panel, you hear it later. So-and-so said we need to do it, so that's why we're doing it. Well, so-and-so didn't have enough information. So go in and ask that question. And if you want to path up, regardless of where, if you want to path up, go ask the question, get a clear direction, and you'll find there's many ways of solving that problem. That's probably the one that's most profound for me. As I saw people who were older than me, most people way younger than me, like in high school and college, out there having a great time. Here I am with I turned 50 last year, so a little bit older, competing with all these young people. Like I can smoke all of them, get faster than them, which is a whole other set of issues for me. I'm rambling now, so you should bring me back to the
competitive guy. So that's where we're at. I think that's awesome because you have this really cool experience that you can bring back and share and tell your story. When the book comes out, I want a signed copy. That's that. But one of the things, like, it's inspiring to hear you talk. It's inspiring to think about going away. I have left my phone behind. Pretty solid, so try it. Don't be afraid. Um, but what was the like most majestic or beautiful thing that you saw or experienced there? I'm kind of wanting to plant the seed to get to the angels because I think that's rad. But what was it that you saw that you're like, oh my god?
Yeah, as I've gone back and all my journaling and voice notes I kept with myself and other things, like what I realized is like most days I'm like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. This is the most beautiful campsite I've ever been. And this photo that's up here that you're seeing now is towards the end. It's about 30 miles from Durango. The trail goes from Denver to Durango. And the bottom of this, there's just two amazing lakes. It's just over and over and over again. The mountains and the wildflowers are amazing. And so the most one of the most beautiful things on the nature side is I actually think that all of it was beautiful, and I just was in a state of mind where I was not in my phone, not in my laptop, and I was looking around. Here in Texas, we have some of the most beautiful sunsets anywhere in the world, far more beautiful than up in the mountains. Maybe it's because the pollution and the way that the air is. I don't know, but we have gorgeous sunsets. There are wildflowers out in Texas still right now. I do a lot of biking. There's beautiful wildflowers out there, and if
Just don't pick them.
there you go, just enjoy it. Just enjoy them. Leave no trace. Like let other people, take nothing but photos and that kind of thing. But it's a matter of like just looking up and around, and there's beauty in like lots of people. But the absolute flat out most important thing that I experienced and that I learned and is literally changing my life was the generosity of other people. And in particular, there are about halfway through this hike, there's a section where it's not incredibly, scenic per se, and you share the mountains, the trails with cattle. So the Forest Service leases that land to cattle, and so all your water sources you share with cattle. So cattle out grazing, and you got a little bit of water, and they, just do all their business and everything, and it's really a grind. Like it's really mentally, really, and physically. Let me tell you, lots of issues that we won't go into here in a big audience. Um, but at a particularly low point, I'm on this trail and I see the sign that says trail magic. And trail magic is something that people will do and volunteer their time to provide something to through hikers, people who are bike packing, other things that will happen. And the people who do that are called trail angels. And that particular morning, there was quite a large camp of, of trail angels. They had trailers with big water tanks and tents up. And it was started by two women, two sisters who had done this trail about 10 years prior. And now every summer they come up for 1 to 2 weeks and they make pancakes and hot dogs and food for backpackers. They got big lounge chairs. They actually had a campfire. I got bacon because I was the only person there with my pancakes. So this is special just for you. But they bring up friends. They were sitting there talking to you. But the magical thing here was not just the fact that like the generosity of people, but not at any time did anybody ever ask who I voted for, what my sexual orientation was, none of the things that divide us as a society. They just were impressed and cheered on people who were doing something interesting, a little crazy, but people that were out on a journey and everybody was out searching for something. And I think if you bring that back into life, like each of us are on a hike of some sort, we're on some journey. Each of us are hiking our own hike. And we don't know the pressures and the pains and the other things and the stresses that people have in their life. But the fact that each of you are here now, that you got up out of bed, is worthy of celebration. It's worthy of cheering on other people. And I left that camp just overwhelmed with love. Nobody said, I love you. I just felt that hug and that encouragement. And this world would be a much better place. Our teams would be better. Our communities would be better. Things would be better if we just celebrated those differences. You want to make a weird way of flipping this into marketing, celebrate your customers. Quit talking so much about yourself and listen and celebrate those customers, cheer them on. Makes all these things that we do a whole lot more meaningful than just looking at the bottom.
I mean, you couldn't close it out any better than that. Thank you so much for coming to share. And do you have, last question, do you have another hike planned?
There's so much snow in the mountains this year that I'm on a bike. So in July, I'm going to bike across the state of Washington and visit some friends. So just a little thing. So
Amazing.
thank
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.